Hey now everybody, Jamie here. And on our podcast when we talk about games and we review games and so on and so forth, one of the things that we focus on quite often is the artwork of the game. All these beautiful visuals that are created by guys like Vincent Dutrait and Xavier Collette, Ian O'Toole, all these great guys that do amazing looking visuals. But really, is the artwork the only place that we can find art in a board game design? Can the game itself actually be art? Now, to start off this conversation, I kind of want to talk about myself for a second and how I feel like I kind of jive with this whole topic of artwork. In my whole life, I have been what I sort of consider a creator. I create stuff. I do things because I need to let these creative juices flow. I've been a musician for years, played in a band for 5 years, on stage, writing music, recording music, and it was such a blast back then. And, I've been a graphic designer for 17 years, went to art school, and I still do graphic design even to this day. And now I'm doing these videos, I'm doing the podcast, writing and producing audio dramas, and all of that is me trying to express myself. I'm trying to use my skills and my brain to create cool things that'll make people think, they'll make people, make people laugh, they'll spark conversation, basically to entertain people. And I'm expressing myself through that. And really, that's the definition of art. So I guess in some small way, I'm an artist as well. At least I feel like I am. And the intent of art is to do all of those things that I just described. Think about all the artwork that you see throughout your life, beautiful painters and photographers and musicians and, architects. Architects is a great example because I believe that architects kind of mirror board game designers in some capacity. I mean, you'll drive down the street and you'll see a strip mall, and that strip mall looks like 10,000 other strip malls that you've seen in your lifetime across the United States or across the world. It's a utility building, and we need utility buildings, and they're useful and they're cool, but I wouldn't exactly call them artwork in and of themselves. But then there's other buildings that you'll see, like the Guggenheim or the Lotus Temple or the Sydney Opera House, or all of these fantastic cathedrals that have been built throughout time that are literally themselves giant pieces of artwork that these architects created. So there's an intent there behind both of those different kinds of architects. Some to just create a product, and some to create something beautiful, which still has some functionality. Now, looking at board game designers today, think about 10, 15 years ago, board game designers weren't called designers. They were actually called inventors. If you Google, you'll see it all the time. The inventor of Monopoly, the inventor of Sorry, or whatever. And think of the two terms there. Inventor. Normally inventions are, technology or a new product, and inventors create those things. Really doesn't have an artistic spark to that word, but today we call them board game designers, which specifically has an artistic connotation to the word designer, like a graphic designer or a guy who designs a building. Really, we think about it subconsciously just through our language that these people are artists. These board game designers are artists. And like an architect, there's functional board games, which I'll get to in a second, but there's also artistic board games that have function. They're there for us to enjoy. They're there for us to make us think. They're there to make us spark conversation with our friends about strategy and to make us laugh or to make us cry or to have such a great time with these games. I've never cried over a board game, but I'm sure somebody has at some point in their lives. But these board game designers are expressing themselves through this. Now, granted, when I say that, there's the strip mall board games. I'm sure there's plenty of game designers out there that are essentially, hired guns. They're good at designing board games. So, some publisher might have an intellectual property they want to do a board game or a miniatures game for, and they go out and they hire a game designer of some repute that knows how to design pretty good board games. And they have this product. They design a product that works well with this intellectual property because they want to make some money. They want to make a product. And is that a terrible thing? No, it's business. Businesses do that. Now, that doesn't mean that that game designer is not trying to create a good piece of artwork in the confines of using this intellectual property. Of course, there's always the intent of the designer that is important here. But I'm sure there's plenty of them out there that are just doing a job. I mean, there's plenty of painters, like fantastic artists that paint portraits on commission. I'm sure that they don't care that they're painting a portrait of somebody's kid or dog, but they're doing it so they can sustain their lives. You know, they can go on and do real artwork after that. So I'm sure that happens in the board game community, but think about most of these designers you see. Specifically, think of like Kickstarter. Kickstarter's a great place for artists, for media creators, for people who write books, people who create music or artwork. Patreon's another example. These people are doing it for the love of doing it. And when you see a lot of these board game campaigns pop up and you see they're not with a big publisher like a CMON or a Fantasy Flight or any of these other big companies, they're doing it themselves because they had an idea and they want to bring this, what I would consider a piece of art, to the public's attention. And they want to market it to those people. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who think they can make money off of Kickstarter with a board game and that's their motivation, but I can't imagine that many of them do. You're not going to get rich quick off of making a board game unless you're Dominion or Monopoly or, you know, whatever. So thinking about those Kickstarter campaigns, really those people are there for the passion of creating something, for doing all of those things that I mentioned that define art, for making people think, making people laugh, entertain people, sparking conversation and expressing themselves through the skills that they have and the ideas and the imagination that they have. This is fantastic. This is what game design is all about. It's all artwork. Many times in my life, I've thought, hey, I want to design a board game. And what gamer has not had that thought in their lives where they're going to make this really awesome board game? They have this fantastic idea. But I've often also thought, you know, I'm not going to work on this unless I'm doing it for the right reasons or that I'm going to be able to give it my 100%. I don't want to design a game because I want to have a game. I want to design a game because I want it to be, you know, my expression of my imagination and my skills, and I want it to be a piece of artwork. And I want it to be a piece of artwork like many of these. This is definitely artwork. Artwork. This piece of art is by one of the greatest board game artists. Amazing visual artist and game design artist. Artwork at its most elegant. Artwork. The heaviest piece of board game art I own. I take that back. This artwork is heavier. Artwork. Oh my, yes, this is artwork. Artwork. The Leonardo da Vinci of board game artwork. 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 Except the front of it. This is my favorite piece of artwork. The single greatest gaming artwork in history. Think about the time and the passion and the love and the skill and the desire to express yourself that many of these game designers put into these games. I cannot imagine in any world in a million years that is not artwork. Well, thanks so much everybody for joining me here today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like board games, card games, miniatures games, role-playing games, all that good stuff, you can always find more of it on our audio shows. You can find those at the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast and on iTunes. And while you're here, do me a gigantic fave and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, have a good one, everybody.